involvement with the Jewish agency.
With the Jewish agencies?
Yes.
I like to make the statement. I think one of the greatest services to the American Jewish community and the Jewish military personnel was rendered by the Jewish Welfare Board. They have really done a yeoman's service to the Jewish personnel through the chaplain, through the office of the Jewish chaplains, in every respect. Even if funds were necessary, they made it available to us. Supplies, all kinds of supplies, representation in the military, and they were so-called that agency which represented the Jewish chaplains in the Department of War, in the Defense Department. In other words, it is through them that we have things done in Washington as well, because they were one agency that was recognized by the War Department, and we supplied the chaplains, but at the same time they also assisted the chaplains in every possible way. So not only did they give the ecclesiastical endorsement to Jewish rabbis to serve in the military, but they also rendered tremendous assistance through the entire service. In other words, they were always in contact with the Jewish chaplains, and whenever there was anything needed, anything within reason, of course, they made it their business to provide for us.
Could you give me an
matzah,
example? Yeah.
for instance, on Passover, matzah.
We're talking about the
Jewish Welfare War.
yeah.
Now here, let me cite
During
you.
the Second World War.
This is the Second World War. This is the
Yeah.
only war I know. I haven't been in any war. Now, let me say this to you. Let me cite you an example of what the Jewish Welfare Board has done. Here we are in the first Pesach in Europe, in war. Right now, we are right now near a city called, in France, near a city called Bitchy. As a matter of fact, my division took that town. We are called the Sons of Bitchy. See, a little town. We just leveled that thing, and only one thing is left in that town, and that was the hall, of the German hall where they had all their meeting hall, a huge hall. And here we're fighting like hell, trying to cross the Rhine, and the battle is right in the heart of it. It was the Battle of the Bulge, you know. And there we are, fighting, you know, like hell. The sky is red from the artillery coming and going. And here's the Jewish chaplain trying to set up a Seder. And this is something that I'd like to relate to you, even to the story. My Seder in combat. I would put a heading on it. The Seder in combat, having by that time approximately between 1,011, between 900 and 1,000 personnel, because they always replaced, you know, the personnel. So when I lose them, there were always replacement. And here we are in the Battle of the Bulge, and it's Pesach time. And I have approximately 1,000 pounds of matzah, and that's all they sent me, of course, is matzah. The rest I have to supply myself. So my men are dug in combat, you know, in foxholes, in combat, and there's 3-4 days before the Seder, I've got to set up a Seder, and I want to set up a Seder, and here I have loads of matzah that I'm hauling on a trailer. You know, wherever I go, I got a big hauling trailer with all the boxes of matzah. It was shipped from England, you know, over to the chaplains. Wine I didn't worry about, because why? Because wine, you know, we were Alsace-Lorraine at that time. That's the area. Alsace-Lorraine, you know, is known for its best wine. So I won't have any kosher wine, but there's the wine cellars there that is the most beautiful and delicious wine, aged wine, 7 years, 10 years. You go down in the cellars and you see them in those huge barrels, you know, those huge barrels, those wrapped in paper, you know, and it tells the age, you know, of each one of those. So, and it's red wine and white wine and all kinds of, you know, dry wine and sweet wine and whatnot. So naturally, I go down to the basement, to the cellars, and I hauled up on a 2.5-ton truck. I don't know how many cases of wine, and I'm hauling that wine also with me, you see. So wine I got, and matzah I got. But now I need food, you know. And my quartermaster tells me, chaplain, whenever you're set up, just tell me and I'll send you whatever you want. I'll send you steaks, I'll send you any food you want, and fruit and everything else. Well, and also silverware, you know, and things like that. Well, the meat is straight. What are you going to do? Soldiers cannot deprive them of meat, but matzah is there, and here I am, an Orthodox rabbi, but I shouldn't even tell you that. But what can I do? Give them dry matzah and a bissel wine. So what do? After 2 days, finally, I write I get I get a message out to the executive officer, the general's office, and I ask him permission for that particular night, you know, for the first Seder night. And he said to me that he will let me know later the day, and that was the day before the Seder. And then I got a message, I can go ahead and set up for a Seder. And where did I set it up? In that particular hall, you know. And I had a hillbilly using those garbage cans, new garbage cans, and I had cases of fresh eggs, hard-boiled eggs over a fire, you know, in a garbage can, putting on rocks, you know, on stone, you know, making a fire and boiling these eggs, you know, in garbage cans, you know, but they're brand new garbage cans, so I can have hard-boiled eggs. So I had the hard-boiled eggs all night, and I had hard-boiled eggs, and I had wine, and I had matzah, and I requested from the quartermaster steaks, you know, and fruit and vegetables, and I had Germans do the cooking for me of the steaks, broiling the steaks, you know, and this is how I set it up, and I will never forget that sight. Here's this big, huge hall set up with long tables, and and of course we had this H1 carrying, you know, his own fork and knife, you know, and his own and also his plate, you know, this army plate, because they carry with them, you know, that's part of their gear. And they come in dirty, filthy, and in the band, the division band, you know, every division had their own band. In my band, I bet there must have been 75% of them Jews. So I requested from some of the boys in the band that I'd like to have someone playing the violin, you know, and you know, other instruments, a few other instruments. As they come in, the Jewish boys should play the violin with the Jewish music. And I want to tell you something. It was something that the sight I'll never forget. Here's the GI, as the way Mulden describes the GI, with the torn trousers, filthy, dirty, muddy boots, unshaven, with his rifle hanging down the shoulder, and of course the anti-aircraft guns were surrounding the whole hall, because you never knew when a plane may come in or that some fire come in. So there was this. There were pieces of anti-aircraft guns around and around, and and it was blackout, you know, outside. You couldn't see the outside. There's even light inside, but we had light, so we had a wire that I had it wired up so that we had electricity there. You know, we had what they call those machines, you know, that makes electricity, the generators, you know, and we had electrical all around in there, and wired. And here they're marching into the music, you know, Jewish soft music, going down, sitting down there. There's matzah, there's vegetables, there's hard-boiled eggs, there's celery, there's salt water, you know, and there's no horseradish. There's enough bitterness in there without horseradish. And of course, as they come in, you know, who comes up to me? And of course, I invited the general and all the chaplains to come, you know, to take off a few hours of their duties to attend my Seder. And at the head table, I had a general and 2 members of the staff, and the chaplains, and of course some of our Jewish personnel, some of our high-ranking officers, you know. And who comes up to me and says to me, "Chaplain, could I ask the 4 questions?" None other than Brin. You remember Jackie Brin was named? It's not before your time. At that time, he used to entertain in the USO. Jackie Brin. He was a little short fella. He was a well-known singer. He was a well-known singer, and he was well-known on Broadway and even in theaters and in movies. And he came up to me and he says, "Rabbi, do you mind if I ask you the 4 questions?" He was also known for his height, a little short fellow. I think he must have been around 5 feet, that's all. Little short fellow. I said, "Sure." I said, "Do you know?" He said, "Sure." I said, so he gets up on a chair because he was too short, with a voice, a heavenly voice. And he started to say, "Rabbi, I will ask you the 4 questions. Man ishtana halayla hazeh," just like an old man from the small shtetl, from the klein shtetl. And he went through the 4 questions just beautifully, first in Hebrew and then translated it in English, so that everyone can understand. And of course, I answered it with the traditional answer, Avodim Hayinu B'Mitzrayim. And then of course I talked about being enslavement of the ancient Pharaoh and the present Pharaoh. And then of course I called upon the general to say a few words, and he gave us very a hope. And he says, I promise you, man, he says, that next year this time you will be home with your loved ones, he says. I won't be with you, but I'll be with you in spirit, he says. He was a tremendous fellow. To this day I correspond with him. To this day, every Christmas, I get a card from him, and I send him a card. This is our relationship up to this, mind you, so many years back. At any rate, we had this beautiful, as they walked in and they sat down, we had the beautiful service. I had Haggadah, and we went through the Haggadah, the entire Haggadah. We sang Dayenu. Everybody sang, and by that time, don't forget, everybody had a bottle of wine with them that we gave them, and some of them brought wine with them too, because listen, these fellas had to keep warm, and in the army everything goes, and they had a wine. So by that time they were good ungetrunken wine, not a question of four cups of wine, They had more than 4 cups of wine because the wine was just loaded with cases of wine. And as they were leaving, I was handing out to each one a box of matzah to take along with them, so that all of the matzah was used up and distributed to the personnel. This was also through the courtesy, to the help and assistance of the Jewish Welfare Board. They provided us with the matzah and with the Haggadah, And it was a tremendous help for the Jewish Board.
Now, during this period, did you have any direct relations with the Jewish Welfare Board?
Yes. Every month we had to send them a report of our activity, what we call an activity report, and also some events that took place, of sometimes unusual things that they could put into the press and so on and so forth. But primarily we used to give them a report, how many attendants, what was our activities. You've seen those, the services, the kind of services, so that they can get a pretty good picture of what's going on, what kind of work chaplain is doing in his work, what kind of how we can assist them, and so on and so forth.
Did you feel any need to alert the American Jewry to what was happening?
You mean well, I was a combat chaplain. I was not exposed to the American people,
well, in terms of when you first encountered the DPs.
The DPs, I immediately, as soon as I got to the DPs, I immediately informed the Jewish Welfare Board. See, our channel, our services were channeled over through the Jewish Welfare Board. We felt that once we turned anything over to the Jewish Welfare Board, it's not just going to be thrown into a file. No. They went through it very carefully, everything in detail. Anything that had to be conveyed to the Jewish agencies were conveyed to them. Important matters were conveyed to them. So that we felt that they were so well qualified people and competent and concerned and dedicated that the channeling should be through our agencies rather than direct to any. Sure, we would write to our synagogue, to our community, a few words, a few letters. Yes, we do. I have that. But those letters were merely just very limited, First of all, military things we were prohibited to give out.
Right.
And certain things we felt maybe has to be first directed to our agencies before we should come out with the public. It shouldn't come out individually because, we had all kinds of chaplains too. We had Kluge chaplains, we had dumb chaplains, The area chaplain was a smart Jewish rabbi, Some of them were loafing too, between you and me. There were chaplains that were taking it easy, and not in combat, not during the war, I'm talking about the war. For instance, after the war, our chaplains had it made, They were going on vacations, they had balls, they were traveling through Europe, they were taken in Europe, at the expense of Uncle Sam, like many GIs do, you know what I mean? They go on.
Yeah, but are you saying that the Jewish chaplains after the war, when they had an opportunity to work,
when a Jewish chaplain were confronted with DPs, they'd done everything possible to have the DPs.
Did you know anybody who refused to do it?
No. Every Jewish chaplain right after, I'm talking about after the war, meaning when the problem of DPs has been eliminated.
Right. I see.
After that chaplain, but not the chaplains right after the war. Every Jewish chaplain has pitched in. They had to. They were. It's not a question of compelling them. There was an earnest desire to be of assistance. Because I'll tell you, if a chaplain wouldn't do it, he would have been. The Jewish personnel would have nothing to do with it. I mean, the Jewish personnel were. Don't forget, the Jewish soldiers were around. It wasn't because the Jewish personnel were isolated from our DPs. On the contrary, they became part of the DPs. They intermingled with the DPs. We would have them to get them at the services at a function. I would tell my DPs to go there and to go here and to go there and take care of this and see this. And I would use my Jewish personnel to help me after duty hours to visit and to see those things and to help. So you see, if a Jewish chaplain did not apply himself, the Jewish personnel wouldn't tolerate it. They would immediately report it to somebody. So the next Jewish chaplain or somebody else. But they'd raise hell.
You never heard of
To the best of my knowledge, no Jewish rabbi, there wasn't a Jewish rabbi that I knew that didn't do his utmost to assist in the work of the DPs.
Now this Morris Rosenberg, who you say is living in Israel, where in Israel?
In Jerusalem. I don't know exactly where. I should be running into him one of these days. I'll try to locate him.
Well, I'll try to locate him as well.
Yeah.
What about the efforts to smooth the relations between the DPs and the Army? In other words, the chaplains, we pointed out that there was a problem with the black market, and this did lead to some difficulty with the Army, as did other activities.
Did you have information on that? No, I'll tell you.
You didn't encounter that?
No, I did not encounter that. I had one report made to me, one report was made to me about one man, a DP, who was selling coffee, and he was doing black marketeering, and I took him to task. I called him in. I said to him in Yiddish, he's a Polish fellow, and I said to him, tell me, why do you do this? I said, because, the military is upset about this, and that the Jews are taking some of the military supplies. They don't know where they're getting it, and all this, and you're buying it, maybe buying it from a GI or maybe getting it something. Why do you do this? So he turns around, he says to me, Rabbi, he says, look, he says, what's more important? He says, a 5 can of coffee or a pair of shoes? He says, if I wouldn't have the coffee, I wouldn't have the pair of shoes that I wear. And he says to me, what's his bill fare? What's more important? He shut me up right away. I said, certainly you got to have a pair of shoes. He says, that's my answer, he says, I needed a pair of shoes, so what? I had a coffee, and I didn't care how I got the coffee, but I needed a pair of shoes, he says. I couldn't walk around barefooted, so I got the pair of shoes, he says, because I got a pair of coffee. How I got a pair of coffee? I gave him my watch, I gave him my shirt. Whatever I did, he says, I got a coffee. He says, that's, if you call it what it is, he says, what should I do? And from then on, I left it alone.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there any other activity in Aliyah Beh?
In the Aliyah, you mean from well, no activity other than I related to you that I knew that the Israeli brigade, the Jewish brigade, who were with the English, were taking people to Hasharaz in Italy, and so that the only assistance I could ask is whoever wanted to go, I would see that they would go with the brigade. Later, how they got there, I don't know. It was beyond me. Maybe they got there on their own, because it doesn't take very long a Jew to orient himself to conditions where he can say, look, I don't need your help. I can get my way myself there, maybe better, you see. Hey, the shekafar, but the wheels begin to turn. They now realize they are free. They now realize they're free, that they're able to get around. They're just using a little bit of tech, a little bit. And I'll tell you when, right after the war, the first food that came to me, and it was Erev Pesach. No, it was Erev Yontif. The first food, not even knowing before that, the first boxes of food came to me from the Bad Hatzalah. Boxes, huge boxes. I tell you, it was like God sent to me. Kosher stuff, and kosher food. And there were people that wanted to eat kosher. As soon as they had a chance, they already stopped eating treif, and they'd come around and said, "Look, I'm starved. Have you got something to me that's kosher?" So there was a problem between trying to help those that wanted that non-eat kosher. They wanted to taste Jewish food, and kosher, non-kosher. So I rationed it out, in rations, and I didn't give it to the military. I gave it strictly to the DPs. Everything was turned out. I used to take away from the military. I used to take away the packages that they received from their parents. They were dying for mother's cookies and the salamis and whatnot. I used to take it away from them and turn it over to the DPs.
They did it willingly.
Oh, sure. They were so happy. And what's to them? I used to say to them, cut yourself off a couple of slices and the rest give it to me. All right. So, because the same Jewish boys, if they wanted salami, they can eat the non-kosher salami too. They had those. They had all the meats they wanted. The Americans weren't short of food, the best. Soldiers didn't have it. They had turkeys and fowl and all kinds of food, steaks and whatnot. I've kept you up. It's 9 o'clock now.
It's all right.
All right.
Working within the camps, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Working within the camp.
Well, camp, not concentration camps, but within the various groups that you were working with.
Well, you mean the Jewish?
Yeah.
You mean in the
I'm sorry, perhaps I should rephrase it, because it's getting
Yeah,
late.
all right.
I will say, in other words, when you were dealing with either the Jews in Stuttgart, the DPs in Stuttgart, or the DPs in any of these other, in the Camp Sanitarium, or any of these, are there any other stories involved in that that before we conclude, that you want to relate? Can you think of anything else you think that might be of importance, which characterizes the role of the chaplain?
Well, one of the great problems that we had is, oh yes, I may relate. You see, so many stories are coming to my mind, and I had the occasion to bring the Jewish personnel from Theresienstadt to Stuttgart and also to Frankfurt am Main.
You were first chaplain to these?
Yes, the first chaplain.
That's extremely important.
Yeah. Now, I was told that there in Theresienstadt.
When was this?
That was right after the war was just ended, and I was told that there were people, Jews in Theresienstadt, who were who lived in Stuttgart, would want to come back, and there was a question of transportation, you know. So I was able to get 3 buses. The fuel was the used charcoal, wood fuel, German converted, you know, to charcoal motor, you know, fuel. And this is the kind of a buses I used to bring them back from Theresienstadt to Stuttgart. Men, women, and children. Among them was a rabbi by the name of Newhouse, who was the rabbi of Frankfurt am Main. And I brought him back to Frankfurt am Main, and there he became back the rabbi of Frankfurt am Main. And later he came to the States, and he died here in the United States. But Rabbi Newhouse was his name. Very dignified, very learned, very learned in both not only in Talmud, but secular learning as well. And I brought back these Jews, and I also provided them with all their...
How did you bring them back? How did it actually happen?
Well,
Could be more...
All right. I was informed that these Jews had no transportation to come to Stuttgart. I requisitioned 3 of these buses. I couldn't get military transportation. So I got the civilian transportation, military buses. Requisition, the word requisition means giving an order and says, come on, or else, you see. And that's the way we take them off, and we say, come on, and you go. And we requisitioned them, and we loaded these people on these buses and brought them back to Stuttgart and to Frankfurt am Main, and some of them went even back to some of their homes, you know. The Germans were living there, and of course the question was to get back to homes, and it had to go a lot of red tape, because by that time we not only had the German Burgermeister, which we didn't care so much, but we had a military governor, like I had this Colonel Dawson, you know, who was smoking a big cigar, and how dare you, chaplain, take the authority first of all, you're a chaplain, you have no power of command, you know. You're a chaplain, you're not a line officer, you know. And all talking like that. Well, this is exactly it. You have a government, so you had to be very careful. But they made it already, by that time, made it hard to get back those homes, very difficult. But we got them back. We worked it, we got it back. We got them back to home through the military and through the help of the local, we got them back their possessions, whatever. Little possession, not possession. The homestead, you know, few of them, not very few of them. But the synagogue was restored, the library was opened, of course, whatever few books were left, because most of them were burned, and the house of worship, the big synagogue there, was redecorated. I saw to that it's being redecorated, and so on, so that Rabbi Newhouse had an office, you know, and a secretary. I set him up there, so-called in operation. This was part of my job that I did in Frankfurt am Main, although I was stationed in Stuttgart. But there was no rabbi within an area of 1,000 miles. I was the only chaplain in that area. I'm not trying to boast about it, because from Stuttgart all the way through Frankfurt am Main, through Mannheim, through Hull, and all the way to southern part, there was no Jewish rabbi there. He said, further down, yes, you see.
In Bavaria there was.
In Bavaria there was, see.
There
that's right. They had a, and also Marcus, you know, but Marcus was there. But in my area, I was the only one in that area. So, and the headquarters was still, you know, in Paris, you know. Judah Nadish was with Judah Nadish was there with the Eisenhower.
Did you have any involvement with Nadish?
Nadish, yes. He came around several times for chaplain meetings. And I have a picture, of course, where he was strictly in the headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
We had some prima donnas, you know, like I call them prima donnas.
Was he helpful to you?
Well, what helpful? He used to bring down to us so-called. This is what a chaplain. He represented the Jewish chaplains in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So he was with the higher echelon chaplain, the higher headquarters with the Protestant and the Catholic, and so on. He used to bring us the news, you know, of the chaplaincy. The chaplain's this, the chaplain's that, the chaplain's this. And he was, of course, aware of what the Jewish Welfare Board is doing. But as far as the Jewish Welfare Board is concerned, they worked with us direct. They did not go through Judah Nadish. See, Judah Nadish was strictly a representative of the military. The
he also had to file reports.
He also had a file report, like all of us did.
Was there anything else about Nadish?
Nadish did a good job.
You ever need his help? And
No, I never needed any help. I was I was sent, one time I was sent a help. I was sent someone to help me with my work, because not only did I take care, towards the end of the war, not only did I take care of the Jewish personnel of the 100th Infantry Division, but I also was taking charge of Jewish personnel in other nearby divisions who did not qualify a Jewish chaplain. For instance, a unit that didn't have 500 Jewish personnel was not qualified to have a Jewish chaplain, was not given a Jewish chaplain. As a result, if they had 300 Jewish personnel, who's going to take care of them? So the next division that had a Jewish chaplain took care of them. Well, I was the one, so in the Corps, which was, mine was the 6th Corps, and 7th Army, Patch's Army, 6th Corps, there were 2 cherished chaplains, Max Einhorn and myself. Max Einhorn was with the Corps, strictly in the headquarters of the Corps. He's with the military headquarters of the Corps, that's all. You know? He did not go down to the lower echelons, to the process soldaten, to the common soldiers. He was in the headquarters, you know, a macher in the Corps, big wheel in the Corps, nice guy, wonderful fellow, but when it had to be a burial or someone was killed, anyone from the 6 or 7 divisions make up a Corps. He used to call down to Chaplain Eskin, a burial so-and-so that killed, you know, burial this and this, you know. So Chaplain Eskin went, not because I had to. I could have told him to go plump the heck, you know, I didn't have to take their orders. But I wanted to do it because it's a Jewish boy and I had to take care of him. But we had those chaplains who were prima donnas, you know. They were high in the echelon, you know. They were playing gin rummy and they were playing, drinking with the officers' club, you know, having a ball, you know. But I was with the infantry. And on reflection on Max, that was his assignment, you know. You know what I mean? He played bridge morning, day, and night. Okay? I was with the military. I was with the infantry. I was with the fighting soldiers, and I lived with them, and I wanted to be with them because there was nothing for me. I get a call 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I have to jump in cold, you know, in France, with my Jeep, blackout, you know, with those little slit windows, lights, you know, dark, and travel, you know, on a snow road, you know, trying to get to a first aid station or to a hospital, a field hospital. A man was maybe very severely injured, brought in, dying, you know, something like that, and they said they need a Jewish chaplain. So I used to get up and run down there, and that's it. This was part of my job, and to say I enjoy doing that, it's not enjoyable, but it was a duty that I not only accepted, but I felt that this is my responsibility. It's a moral responsibility. So to fulfill this, and of course writing letters, you know, of condolence letters to parents was a very tragic and very painful thing for me because you knew the man, you lived with him. Because infantry, you see, you live with the man. You're with him in the field, you see him all the time. Of course, when they go up to the line, to the line of battle, you walk with them practically up to their foxholes. Mm-hmm. You don't leave them and say, goodbye, Harry, I'll see you tomorrow. You go with them. As they march through, you go right side by with them. It gives them a little bit of feeling that they're not alone, see? And then when they come back, I usually stand and wait for them as they're coming back from the field of battle to welcome them, and I'd set up a service